Hey guys, welcome back. Professor Cameron here. And what we're going to be covering today is how to make springs. Now, when it comes to springs, there are a whole bunch of different types. There are compression springs, there are tension springs, or various types of flat springs. What we're going to focus on is just a basic coil spring, a basic compression coil spring. Now, as far as coil springs go, this is pretty simple. There are more advanced coil springs with tapering diameters and special hook features on the end. Those are going to be covered in other videos. But for now, we're going to go over just a basic coil spring like you would find in a clicky pen or the springs in your car. Now, when we go ahead and model this, what we're going to do is it's going to require a little bit of setup. And what we're going to start out with is setting our planes. So we all know by now that we have a front plane, we have a right plane, and we have a top plane. We're going to go ahead and take our front plane and we're going to copy this. We're going to create another plane right here. So this will be plane 1. This distance is going to be the length of our spring. We're then going to go ahead and create another plane to this side. This will be plane 2. This distance will only be about an inch or so. Now the reason why we have to create these two planes is because what we're going to do is we're going to take a helix and we're going to wrap it around like this. We're then going to have a circle follow the path of that helix. We're going to use the swept boss base feature to do that. Now what we want to do is we want our spring to have nice square edges. So we have to start our spring a little bit before and extend it a little bit past so that way we can come in and trim these out. Leaving behind the length of spring that we need, but it's going to have nice flat edges, and that's going to aid with the mating process. So let's go ahead and start this. So this is the spring we're going to be making today. We're going to go ahead and create a new part file. And like I said, what we're going to start out with is setting those planes. We're going to grab our front plane here. We're going to press and hold Control. We're going to click on the plane and drag it out. This offset distance here is going to be the length of our spring. And today we're going to be making a 6-inch long spring. Now what we're going to cover today is just the modeling of the spring, not the actual design of the spring. That's going to be a topic for another video. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select OK. And now we have plane 1. We're going to go ahead and do that same operation again, except we're going to go in the opposite direction. We're going to press and hold Control, click, and drag. And this really only needs to be about an inch or so. We don't need a lot of material here. Now we have plane 2. So with our front plane, our plane 1 and plane 2, we're ready to go ahead and begin. We're going to go ahead and create a sketch on plane 2. This is the 1-inch plane that we made. We're going to grab our circle tool and go ahead and draw out a circle. Now when it comes to springs, there are two diameters, the inside diameter and the outside diameter. If we want our spring to have an inside diameter of 3 inches, well, what we have to do is we have to take that 3 inches and we have to add the diameter of the wire to it. Now in this, we're going to model this with a 1/4 inch diameter wire. So we're going to model this at 3.25. Right like that. And again, this is on plane 2. Once we have this, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Features, Curves, and Helix and Spiral. And you can see it's going to create this corkscrew for us. Now we need this corkscrew to extend a little bit past plane 1. We're going to go ahead and set that to about 8 inches. Now we can define our coil by a few different parameters. We can do it by the pitch, which is the distance between the coils, and the number of revolutions, or the number of coils. We can define it by the overall height, and the number of revolutions, or the number of coils. We can define it like we're doing it with the height of the coil and its pitch. Or you can define it as a spiral. We're going ahead setting our height to 8 inches, defining the pitch as 1 inch between the coils. Now the important thing to remember, this start angle, this has to start at some function of 90 degrees. So 0 degrees, 90, 180, 270, or 360. And the reason is, we need that coil to start on a plane. So we're going to have a plane like this and like this, right? That coil has to start on a plane because we're going to come in here and on that plane draw a circle. And if we don't have that coil starting on that plane, it won't link to do the sweep. So this sketch and this coil have to intersect, which is why it's at a function of 90 degrees. So 180 degrees is fine, and this looks good. We're going to go ahead and select OK. So we've got the pathway. What we have to do now is to create the profile. In my case, that coil intersects with my top plane, so I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch on it. I'm going to grab my circle tool. I'm going to start it right where that coil starts. And then I'm going to smart dimension this to lock it in place. And this should be 1.625. So this looks good. What I'm going to do is set my coil diameter. I'm going to set this to 1/4 inch, 0.25. And that looks good. So what we have is we have these two sketches now. We have the helix and we have the wire. We're going to go ahead and go to our Features tab. We're going to go to Swept Ball Space. And it's going to give us two boxes here, a blue one and a pink one. The blue one is for our path, or I'm sorry, our profile. Think of this like putting a cookie cutter on a shoestring. However that shoestring is oriented is the way that cookie cutter is going to follow. The blue one is for the cookie cutter. The pink one is for the shoestring. So we're going to go ahead and select that wire. Then we're going to select the path with the pink box there. And what that's going to do is it's going to wrap it around. Right like that. We're going to go ahead and select OK. You can see we have about 1 inch of space between plane 2 and our front plane, and then this should extend for about 1 inch on that end. So what we have to do is trim this down to length. We have to take 2 inches off this approximately. We're going to go ahead, create a sketch on plane 2, and all this has to be is just something that will cut off that material. So a circle any larger than the diameter of your coil. The exact size isn't important. Then we can go to Features, Extruded Cut. Now we're going to cut this in 2 directions. Direction 1, we're going to cut it blind to 1 inch, which is the distance away from our front plane. And then direction 2, we're just going to cut through all. That looks pretty good. And you can see it's giving us that nice flat bottomed edge there. Now on plane 1, we're going to do the same treatment. We're going to go ahead, draw a circle with that same 4.25, or really any diameter larger than our coil spring. We're going to go ahead, go to Features, Extrude Cut, and we're just going to cut this off through all. And then that's going to go ahead and trim that nice and flat. And we can go ahead and turn off visibility on everything. And what we have here is our custom coil spring with nice flat ends. That's going to make this really easy to mate for you. That is exactly 6 inches long. So if you guys have any questions on this, go ahead and leave a comment, let me know. And otherwise, I will catch you guys in the next video.